8-4, slope. Slope describes the steepness of a line. It is the ratio of the rise, the vertical change, to the run, the horizontal change. So slope is actually the rise over the run, mathematically. And over on the right, you can see that the rise, if you think of a set of stairs, the rise is how far up you have to put your foot when you go up a step, and the run is how far forward you take a step. So the slope describes the steepness of the line, rise over run. We can mathematically figure that out from a graph on a coordinate system. We're going to use the formula that's in the lower left-hand corner. M will always be the slope of a line, and you can see that it is given by y with a little 2 subtract y with a little 1. We'll say y2 minus y1, and then that's the change in rise, and then you have the x2 minus x1 coordinates. In our example, that translates into m equals y2 is over here, which is going to be 3, minus the other y coordinate, which is 2 right above it. And then we will have x2 on the bottom, 5, minus the other 2. So this is going to give us the slope of this line. So when we simplify this, 3 minus 2 is 1, and 5 minus 2 is 3. This translates into a slope of 1/3. What that means is the line that's on the graph has a slope of 1/3. From one point, you go up 1 unit, and then you go 3 units to the right. So we'll start at the first blue dot. We go up 1 unit, and then 1, 2, 3 units to the right, and there we have our slope. And that will continue on throughout that line, because the line continues on in both directions forever. Now, this slope is a positive slope, because the slope actually has a positive answer. It's a positive 1/3, so it's a positive slope. And we know it's going to be a positive slope because if you look at it going from left to right, it has an upward direction. If you remember percent increase and percent decrease, the percent increase, as you went from the first number to the second number, you went up to the second number. That was a positive increase. So this is similar to that. Because it goes from left to right, it goes in a positive direction. Let's try another example. So, rewriting the formula for slope, which I'd like you to write on every piece of paper from now on. Yes, you're right. It's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Please write this on your papers. This is a very important formula. I do need you to memorize this one. So we have our line on our graph, and you can see that we have 2 blue dots, and their coordinates are written off to the left up at the top. We're going to substitute in y2 minus y1, and I've still given you the x1, y1, and x2, y2. So the first on the top is going to be negative 3 minus 1 over 0 minus negative 2. And so when we simplify that, negative 3 minus 1 is going to be negative 4. And 0 minus negative 2 is going to be positive 2. And please leave slopes as fractions. It's very important that they're as fractions because we need a rise and a run. It makes it easier to see them on a graph. So the slope of this line is negative 4 over 2, which means we're going to start at the first dot. We're going to go down 4 units because of that negative sign, and we're still going to go to the right 2 units. Let's see if that works. Starting at our first dot, 1, 2, 3, 4 units down, and 2 units to the right. And there we have our slope of negative 4 over 2. This one happens to be a negative slope. And it's a negative slope simply because the answer is a negative number. It's negative 4 over 2. And you can also tell from the graph itself that going from left to right, it goes downhill, so to speak. Another example, here we have a horizontal line. Let's see what happens when we find the slope of this. And again, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And the more often you write this formula, the quicker you will remember it, and the more easily you'll remember it when you need it later. So we have, substituting it in, what number do you think is going to go first for y2? It is going to be 1. It's actually going to be this one right there. And then y1 is going to be the other y coordinate, so we're going to have 1 minus 1 on the top. And on the bottom, we will have x2, which is the 3, minus negative 1. And when we simplify, we get 0 over 4. In this case, because we have a 0, we can simplify it and make it a whole number. So the slope of this line is 0. It has no slope. It's a flat line. Picture yourself if you were going sledding in the snow. If you were to go on this hill, you wouldn't go very far. You could see that you'd set your sled down, you'd sit down in it, and you wouldn't go anywhere because it has a 0 slope. One more example. Here we have this line, so we'll write the formula for slope, which is what? Yes, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we will substitute in what's going to be y2 in this case. Hey, you're right. It's going to be negative 3 minus the 2 on the top. And then on the bottom, we will have the other 2 minus 2. And we get m equals negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5, and 2 minus 2 is 0. Do you notice a problem with this particular slope? Yes, we have 0 in the denominator. For about 5 years now, since you've been working with fractions, you've been taught that you cannot have 0 in the denominator. And that goes back to you can never divide by 0. It's not possible. There's no answer. And you've been told that you can't have math problems that look like this. Well, you actually do end up with math problems that look like this. And this line, the vertical line, has an undefined we're going to call it an undefined slope because it is a vertical line. And vertical lines are a very special case because the slope has divide by 0, which you've always been told you can't do, but in reality, it actually does show up in your math problems. So, negative 5 over 0, leave it like that and just call it an undefined slope. Very important. So, we've seen 4 different slopes today. We have a positive slope, a negative slope, a 0 slope, and an undefined slope. Your work today is all about finding slope. You'll be using m equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1 often today. And you're actually going to use it from now on when you work with lines. It's very useful and very helpful. Some of your work today, you will be given just the 2 points that you have to find the slope from. Some of your work, you'll be given just a picture of a line. And you have to pick 2 points for x1, y1, x2, y2. And it shouldn't be too difficult. Your homework today is on pages 390 and 391, 12 through 30, the evens.